In this lecture, I'm going to give a very quick overview of the auto scaling service, exactly what it is, how do we configure these instances that go into an auto scaling group, and exactly what an auto scaling group looks like, and how we create a scaling policy to define how our auto scaling group scales, and also look at how we monitor our auto scaling group. So auto scaling, it's a service that creates groups of EC2 instances that can scale up or down depending on the conditions you set. This enables elasticity by scaling horizontally by adding or terminating EC2 instances. It also enables fault tolerance because it has health checks of these EC2 instances and can automatically terminate and replace unhealthy instances. It can span multi-availability zones, although it cannot span multiple regions. The basic parameters of an auto-scaling group are the minimum size that it can be and the maximum size that it can be, and the desired capacity, which is what it basically starts out as. And the benefits of an auto-scaling group is that it provides much better fault tolerance, better availability, and we're getting better cost management because we are closely matching our demand to our capacity. A launch configuration is a template that defines the configuration of the EC2 instances that are going to be launched into our auto scaling group. So these EC2 instances, we need to know if we're going to be launching them, we need to know first of all what the AMI that we're launching it with is, what the instance type is going to be. Is it going to be a small, extra small? Is it going to be extra large or whatever? What key pair are we going to be using to access those EC2 instances, and what security groups are going to be associated with these EC2 instances? The launch configuration can also be used to describe spot instance bid pricing as well. So an auto scaling group, it's a collection of EC2 instances, and it can be used to scale the number of EC2 instances automatically, up or down. The starting point for our capacity will be the desired capacity that we set, and health checks ensure that unhealthy instances are terminated and replaced to maintain the desired capacity. Scaling plans are simply ways to scale, and the scaling plans that are available to us are to first of all, maintain desired capacity and the maximum number of instances. We can manually scale by changing the desired capacity and the minimum and maximum number of instances. And the number of instances can be increased or decreased automatically based on conditions that we specify in a scaling policy. Or we can actually scale based upon a schedule. So we could have scheduled actions in our auto scaling group EC2 console. So we go into the EC2 console and we can go into our auto scaling group and we can select a scheduled action for that auto scaling group. A scaling policy, it defines how much you want to scale based on some defined conditions. The auto scaling group, it uses alarms or CloudWatch alarms and policies to determine what the scaling is going to be. So that policy could be around CPU utilization, for example. The adjustment types include a change in capacity. We could put X number of additional instances onto our auto scaling group, or it could be an exact capacity that we want to maintain, or it could be a percentage change in capacity. So we could say add 25% of our number of instances. The scaling policy types available to us include simple scaling and step scaling. Simple scaling allows us to increase or decrease the number of EC2 instances in our auto scaling group based upon a single scaling adjustment. A cooldown period can be defined before the next scaling event kicks in to ensure that there is no doubling up on our scaling events. The problem with simple scaling is that it may be too slow to react to large spike demands, and it may be too quick, or it may react too much to small changes. The other option there is step scaling, and step scaling We didn't always have step scaling. I think it came in mid-2015. But that allows us to have different scaling adjustment values for different bands of conditions. It allows small changes in capacity for small changes in our conditions. And it allows large changes in capacity for large changes in our conditions. An example of that, we might want to increase our capacity by 25% if our CPU utilization falls between 25 and 50%, for example. We might want to increase our capacity by 200% if our CPU utilization falls between 50 and 75%. So that gives us a lot more granularity around what we can do with our scaling in response to the different stages of those conditions. So that brings us to the end of this lecture on auto scaling, and there will be a very in-depth hands-on lab on highly available and fault-tolerant architecture, which will go into elastic load balancing and auto scaling groups and a whole heap of VPC. So I'll look forward to you in that lab.